Episode 5, maybe.
I don't know. You tell me.
4. Wait. Bunch of people have been coming up. We have the great drummer Rich Kulsar here with me. Say hi.
Hello. Hello.
So what's up, man? You survived Hurricane Ida.
Survived. Yep.
I mean, did you see some of the videos from yesterday?
Yeah.
Manhattan was buried. I mean, it was like underwater.
I know.
There's been like 9 deaths.
Ever since this pandemic hit, I really just feel like this planet is screaming to us human beings.
To get your shit together.
to start to realize our connection to this planet and how we treat the planet. You know, I think, we are living at a time when human beings have become very individual centric. I mean, and I mean, we all know that there have been people preaching that is the ideal mindset for humans to be in for a while now. I think the one, Ayn Rand was probably the one writer who has influenced that in America. I mean, I'd be open to, I know you're very philosophical. Matter of fact, you're the one who kind of hit me to Escape from Freedom, and back when we were in college together, and that was just very enlightening to read that.
For me, music and philosophy go hand in
Absolutely.
hand in hand.
I agree.
Yeah. By the way, people, Rich and I, of all the musicians in New York, I think we go back the longest. We went to college together. Matter of fact, you played drums in one of my first original quartets bands called GSQ in the 80s, maybe late 80s.
That would have been probably like 87, 88.
I mean, we made a cassette album.
we recorded on early Akai 8-track multi-track machines in a living room
in Boston. And we played around like, what's that Western Front and Riles, places like that.
We did some radio shows.
Yeah, but we had a pretty good band. Ole Mathisen, he's still here. I haven't seen him in years. And Matt Garrison played electric. And wow, so I was kind of like.
And then Aryeh, who's
Aryeh played
who I've been keeping in touch with via.
He's in Israel, right?
Yeah, via Facebook, and he seems to be doing great in Israel. He's
Yeah,
teaching a lot, writing, and
So it kind of I kind of reflected upon it before you came today. Like, well, I've been doing my own music, which I've always wanted to do. Once, that was one of the reasons I got into music, to have my original music and get this stuff out there, since I was like 19 years old at Berkeley.
Yeah.
Wow. So cool.
Yeah, you've always been very dedicated to your vision and your. I don't think you were ever that interested in your soul with being a sideman. I think
that's right.
I've always felt that, and I've always admired that, because when you're trying to make a living,
right?
You always face those obstacles of like, okay, well, I got to pay my bills. Yeah. So how much of what I really love to do is going to do that, and how much do I have to do something else here to keep it all going?
Well, also probably the nature of my instrument. I mean, if I was a drummer or a bass player, then maybe the sideman thing would be more something that I would have done more frequently. But being an electric guitar player in the jazz world, there's just not, most jazz groups use piano, so. And that, and also because I compose,
Right.
And I remember, like, when I didn't have my own groups, I would compose, and the music would just sit on the piano, and it really made me sad. I'm like, what am I doing? Is this just gonna sit here? So, plus, I don't know, maybe it's my guitar players. Like, look at all the guitar players, they're all these, right? Sco, Matheny, McLaughlin, they all have to do their own thing. Right?
Eventually,
So that's cool. Plus, the reason I got into music is, not because I saw a bunch of sidemen on records or anything. It's because I got records of like Coltrane, or when I was younger, Led Zeppelin, or anything like that, bands that put out records and had original music, and that was what made me want to do what I do. So and that still is the reason, one of the main reasons that I still do what I do and I just kind of, instead of following exactly the path that they've made for themselves, I try to see what they've done and then try to create my own path.
And I think that goes right back to that soul searching that all of us human beings need to do. And at some point or another, every human being, I really do believe that we're born with a soul that we have to discover. That the history is there,
right.
and in life we go through life and things kind of happen, and as long as we stay in it and we face it and we listen and we try to hear what our direction is, then we're like fully like living the experience of
right.
and how that you manifest those soul discoveries.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's important. And if that, you got to not be afraid to express, whether the world's going to love it or not, it doesn't matter. It's about you finding some kind of fulfillment in this time. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're lucky if we're here 80 years. It goes by very quickly. It just feels like yesterday that we're rehearsing at Berkeley with Matt and Ole, and
I think we've always had a bit of a timeless relationship.
It's kind of bizarre. Well, I think we're connected by something. See, I don't believe anything is a coincidence in life. So,
agreed.
There are certain souls that, whether you're close or not, continuously meet over and over again for some reason or another. And for me, there are, a handful of people that's like that. And even if I haven't seen them in ages, we pick up right where we left off.
Agreed.
So it's pretty amazing.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, man. Right. There's so much to talk about, because last time I saw you, I think it was in Williamsburg. You were so kind to come to the gig. And then right after that, COVID started, right? It was like end of 2019. And then for over a year and a half, I was in Japan for 11 months because I couldn't come back once I went there. Because,
during COVID.
Yeah. Well, I had a tour last October, like a Japan tour, and I was gonna come right back, but the planes were being canceled because of COVID, and then all sorts of entry bans started to happen.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I guess everything has a silver lining. I was able to get an apartment there. That all these things that happened that I didn't foresee, but because of COVID, I stayed there, and I kept getting a lot of work, meet a lot of new musicians there. So in that sense, it was positive, But I couldn't come back.
And
and
that whole experience, I'm sure. How did that affect you? I mean, because here you are. It's like, okay, well. Yeah. This is what I've been dealt, So you made something good of it. You hustled. You made some connections.
A lot of gigs were canceled or postponed. It kind of made me appreciate the gigs that I have done in the past. I said, they're not really for granted. I mean, because something like this, granted, it was like something major, a worldwide pandemic. When it happened in New York, everything closed, right? Yeah. In February, everything locked down. All the gigs ended. It just started opening up. Just recently, 55 Bar and stuff, having some music. But, for over a year. So I was thinking, what are the New York, what are my peers doing in New York?
But that's awesome that the whole experience made you appreciate.
Yeah,
it's like that. I think that's a beautiful way to look at something that you could look at in a negative way and just kind of be like,
right.
I'm a victim, or this happened to me, and I'm just gonna blah blah blah. But it's like, no, you can, if you can look at it in a positive light.
What happened to all the musicians, and it was difficult because I don't know how much financial aid the government doled out in the United States for musicians, but in Japan, it was really, it was a joke. You know, 100,000
Okay.
yen I received, which is like less than $950. That doesn't even cover rent, right, in Tokyo. So yeah, so we were like, what can I do? So I do, you know, these teaching, but the gigs picked up real quick in Japan. In 2 months, it went down for 2 months. From April to June, they canceled gigs, but from June, the people started being really creative and changed the time from to afternoons. Put all sorts of like COVID you know, like vinyls around the stage and all that kind of stuff. So it's still going on, but Japan is going through I mean, on another side, I'm glad I finally was able to make it back this past June. And then Japan blew up for their 5th wave, and they're having the biggest numbers of infections daily now than
Right
ever.
now.
Yeah, I don't know. So now, you know, but the gigs are still happening. I see Gene Jackson playing here and there, you know, but now the gigs are like 2 p.m., 2 to 4:30 or something like that, or 5 to, because everybody has to close at 8, I heard. So 5 to 7:30 or something like that. So it's kind
So
of
in a positive way, I mean, you know, you've been dodging some bullets there because now you're back here.
Yeah,
At least you
yeah,
dodged.
now-
You're getting stuck over there when it's at its
now
worst.
things
I mean,
are opening up here.
you know.
But a lot of places closed. Like what is it? Jazz Standard went down.
Yeah.
A few other venues closed. Some new ones have opened. Have you heard of Hermana? No, it's a new jazz
No,
venue.
but I have been seeing a lot of new names. I mean, it's gonna happen.
New
People
yeah,
get
eventually.
creative,
Yeah,
and
eventually.
things will.
Right.
Which actually, I wanted to. I was back to when you were talking about your path. You know, I think one thing people who might be watching this video, especially younger people, I think one of the things that a lot of young people want to know is like, you know, what is the path forward today? You know, like you talked
That's a
about
good
it.
question.
You know, I think, and we get that. I've been teaching a lot more lately, and we have a lot of artists that come into our studio. My wife and I run a studio called Mano Lisa Recording Studios in Long Island City, and we have a lot of artists that come in, and when they get done with their record, man, and you know, you come off that euphoria of the creative process,
Right.
and you've now given birth to
your
your
baby,
project, and it's like it's all done, and then it's like this sort of anxiousness sets in, and a lot of times we sit with the artists and we talk it out, man. We brainstorm like all these opportunities and to move forward because it's a lot different. And people that want to get into the studio world as engineers, my wife has been really good with
Like
bringing
audio,
people in and trying to say, look, yeah, you know, if you went to Berkeley, you know, maybe you learned how to work on a giant recording console like back in the days of the old school way, and then you get out in the world and you realize there's only, you know, a few studios left in New York City. You know, the Power Station, which now Berkeley owns, right? You
Berkeley
know, like,
owns a lot.
so
now,
you've got all these skills to work on all this great gear, but like the reality is, like most people are making records in their homes, in their basements, and it's like, so you're a skilled engineer, you know, and so how do you use those skills to help these people that aren't necessarily going to come in? They still need your help.
Yes.
Because a lot of artists that are home making records, they don't really, they would be the first to say, like, yeah, I'm not really an engineer.
Right.
I know how to put a mic on something.
Right.
But man, there's a real art form to being a good engineer and a good
absolutely,
mixer and a good master.
Yeah.
So like all these important roles, you know, are still important. And, you know, sometimes it comes down to not having the money to hire that person, even though you know you're not the best mix engineer. You're like, I can't hire somebody. But you know what? Most mix engineers or people with those skills, if you reach out to them, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of empathy from the professional, experienced community where people will work with you. You know, it's like, so I think that's important to know. You know, like at my studio, we work with all budgets. We have people that come in with big budgets, people that come in with independent artist budgets, and we'll work with everybody. You know, So
that's great. It's amazing that you hooked up a studio after all these years from Berkeley, man. Where we're just like doing what we're trying to pay for the Dunkin' coffee.
Yeah, man. Well, that's an interesting road forward because we're in New York City, and we all know living in New York City that it's a tough place to be creative and pay your bills and all. So. We got creative, my wife and I, Denise Barbarita, who also is a Berkeley graduate, engineering,
right.
And she won her 3rd Grammy Award this year.
Wow!
So she's
what does she record?
Anything really. We just had a great blues project in. We do jazz stuff. We do singer-songwriters. She does a lot of post-production work, sound design, and things like that for people. But yeah, our path forward with that was we started buying all of our gear when we had a 2nd bedroom in our apartment that was not being used.
And so she's always wanted to do what she's doing now.
I think so. Well, she also did a singer-songwriter thing for a while.
Right.
And then we did that for a while. We had some luck with that We got a publishing deal, and that was good for a while. And then, so we put all the gear together in our 2nd bedroom. We literally had the studio in our apartment. We had people coming in to do over. We could do drums and loud things, but we had people coming in to do vocal overdubs and mixing and things. But that got crazy. People coming in and out of your house all the time. We have cats, so it was like, oh, I can't come over to your studio. I'm allergic to cats. So at some point we realized we really got to move all this stuff out into a space. Well, that's hard in New York City to find a place you can afford. And that was a freaking nightmare. So we had to move 3 times. Oof. We basically got kicked out of 2 spaces because they didn't want to renew the leases. And ended up in our best space, which we are in now.
Where is your studio now?
Long Island City.
That's Queens, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And we just renewed our lease. We had a 5-year lease. We made it through that.
Cool.
And we just renewed our lease.
Amazing, man.
But it's a hard journey, man.
I'm sure it is. I mean, you know what? Every like the guys that been coming to this video series, Divertimento, they've all been here for they've all paid their dues, and their stories. It's very inspiring because I think every one of us who have come to New York with really our dream to contribute something beautiful to this usually pretty ugly world, we bust our ass, and the ones that stay here, I've been here since '91, so it's like 30 years now. People who survive and stay here one way or another, whether they become stars or not, or they do other gigs, whatever to do, they usually have 1 or 2 things that they do in the music field that is just so fucking badass that it's, nowhere else in the world. There's great musicians in Tokyo or even Spain when I was living there for a while. Wherever I went, there are a handful of great musicians or whatever, but New York, man, is filled with incredible level of engineers, musicians, in all genres.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And that's why, that was one of the things that I was very attracted to when I moved to New York. Everybody I wanted to sound like and wanted to play with was here. And all the records I loved was recorded here, so.
And again, reach out to those people, and you'd be surprised.
Oh, yeah.
Like people, so I started writing songs. So my songwriting producing name is Skinny Richie.
Skinny Richie.
And that was a name given to me by an old bandmate.
Yeah.
So, I just finally released an EP of songs. I had put out some singles and things. But in that process...
You're producing the music and you have somebody else singing or like a...
No, I'm actually finally... I feel comfortable enough with my singing voice that I sang on these 5... No, these 5... Hey man, Buddy Rich did an album of singing,
So did Kenny Burrell, and it scares me when I... Harvey Hancock did it too.
Did he?
Well, yeah. Actually, that one's pretty good.
Think about it. The human voice, it's like our most...
Right.
If there was ever an instrument to discover, everybody should try to discover their singing voice because it's like it's part of our being,
I sing privately in my studio. Never in front of people.
You sing to your lines, right?
Well, when I play, that I have to do. That's part of it. But no, I sing like...
You got to hear it before before you can play it, right?
Yeah, you should be.
I agree. I teach
so you produced and performed.
Yeah, so the main thing really was composition first. I felt this need to write songs, and I wanted to write songs with words. I've always loved words and never really deeply explored expressing myself with words. So this was an opportunity to do that. And then the first couple songs I released with other people singing.
Oh, I see.
Because I wasn't comfortable with my singing voice yet. I hadn't developed it. I hadn't really found any kind of mojo with it, any emotional expression with it. But on this batch of songs, I finally turned a corner, and I pushed through all the issues or whatever that was holding me back, and so I'm singing on it. Yeah,
that's beautiful. So where can the viewers get it? Is it released yet?
Yeah, so if you Google Skinny Richie, you'll find me. I'm all over the place. I'm the only Skinny Richie next to like pictures of Lionel Richie's daughter, who is painfully skinny. So somehow she comes up when you Google Skinny Richie. You'll see pictures of Lionel Richie's daughter in her bathing suit.
So then they can go and listen and what, like iTunes or all those things.
All those places. Yeah. But the point I wanted to make
was that. Did you play drums on it?
I did. I played drums, wrote all the songs, did all the arranging, producing. But what I wanted to say was there were obviously points where I knew I wanted certain players, like I wanted certain things to happen. And I'm not a soloist on guitar. I use guitar to write. I really don't. I have limited skills in terms of other things.
Yeah.
So, like, I was reaching out to violin players and pedal steel players, background vocalists, and originally I didn't have a lot of money, but I started thinking like, well, I'm sure there are people out there that if they like what I'm doing, they'll work with me. Sure enough, man, I had like these incredible musicians say, yeah, I'll do that for you. And like some people were like, yeah, you don't have to pay me. I'm like, you can no, I'm paying you because like, come on, out of respect for And then I had other people like, I had a friend do an incredible string arrangement, and he like what he charged me, I ended up paying him more than that because but the generosity of the and this is back to they're everywhere.
Is this during COVID?
Yeah. So I finished it during COVID, which kept me from keeping my helped me keep my sanity. But man, like reach out because there's talent everywhere, as you said. In the city, there is talent everywhere. And you'd be surprised, man, if people like what you're doing, if they feel for you, if they like you as a human being, they might just say, yeah, man, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid,
I never
Let's keep creating, man. The world keeps moving all through all this insanity we're going through,
Yeah.
And we all have to create, we all have to find our soul. It's just part of being a human being. And the more human beings are allowed to make these discoveries, the less we do things like become fearful and violent and hateful, because we're fulfilling our time here.
There's so much of that, and especially when I was in Japan and just looking from the outside in the United States to see all the violence that was going on during COVID, man, it was so, for me,
it's terrible,
very discouraging.
And then these people who are fearful start listening to the idiots that are perpetuating fake news, and they're just pulling these people that are searching. They're pulling these weak-minded people down in the hole, who wouldn't be weak-minded if they were doing the soul searching that we all need to do. But you got to have a vehicle.
Right. And you also got to be a little bit insightful to say that and see that. And many people I've seen, not anywhere in the world, aren't like that at all. No. Just a very minority of people who are insightful. Most people, they're just in like this mode of survival at the most shallow level.
But that's our job, to wake these people up, to say, you know what, you can be more insightful.
Right.
You can be a lot more than what you're being. And you don't have to do it through music and arts, but you have to do the work. Let the music and arts open a channel. Right. Let some other person who has a beautiful mind open a channel. And then you can bring that into whatever you're doing, your business, or create a business. Do something that can channel that beauty into the world. I mean,
crazy,
we need it. We need it in a bad way.
I mean, I just saw an article, San Francisco, the government is now considering, because there's so much shootings there now, to start paying $300 a month for so-called, I don't know how they identify, but the high-risk citizens of San Francisco, not to shoot people. $300 a month, man. To say, please don't shoot people.
And you know what's sad about that,
that's
right?
So freaking sad.
I know. And what's sad about that is it's not about money. It's about the soul.
Yeah.
Right? A strong soul, a person who is very much in touch with their soul and their humanness and their mission, isn't gonna, even when they don't have money, they can reconnect and find a path forward, or reach out to other people that can help get you back on the path forward. Right. Money doesn't solve it.
No, it's not going to solve it. But I just thought, well, maybe that's the government has come down to this, you know.
And that's where the governments often fail, right?
Because they're like, oh man, we don't know what else we can do. We're going to start paying so-called high-risk criminals not to shoot people by giving them $300 a month. So I said, well,
a lot of these people need more, like, spend that $300 on health, health needs. Like, make sure these people have a person they can go talk to, like, right? Like, isn't that more important?
So I told a bass player I know, like, listen, man, I'll pay you $1,000 a month for you to stop playing bass solos on my gigs. Your bass solo is worse than the guns. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny.
Oh my god.
Oh man, but how's your drumming these days?
Drumming is great, man.
You play Gretsch? I forgot, Yamaha?
No, I would say
Sonar.
I love Gretsch drums. As a matter of fact, I want to have a Gretsch drum set as part of my arsenal at the studio. Right now, I've got a beautiful old Ludwig set, which gets a lot of work out. I've got a Yamaha recording custom set, and then I've got another nice vintage Leedy drum set. Which technically it's a Slinger Leedy, but that goes into a whole maker history, which we can avoid. So yeah, I'd love to have a Gretsch kit. I feel like a Gretsch kit would complete sort of the sonic palette of drums, and again, I could go deeper into that whole world, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, you were such a badass drummer even when you were a young kid, man. I remember when we first met. You had this really kind of nimble way of playing drums that I didn't hear from anybody else in Boston. There were some really good jazz guys, and then there are, other rock guys, but you had this kind of like in-between way of playing. It was jazz, but at the same time, rock, very nimble. Man, I don't know who it reminded me of, but very like accomplished like technique. And
thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I would say when Charlie Watts passed away, I did make a comment like in social media, that he was one of those drummers that had a little bit of that swing feel in his rock playing. There was still that little bit of an essence of not being too rigid.
I see.
Letting the time breathe so that it can swing, right? And I'd have to say that the first drummer that I heard was John Bonham, who was a rock drummer that had swing feel. Right. And then knowing that those guys all listened to the great jazz drummers, Elvin Jones and Art Blakey, especially I think a lot of the rock guys like those kind of raw jazz players, like the Elvins and the Blakeys, and then that took me into that world, and it was like, because but I think back to your comment about me always having sort of that nimbleness, that came from, I think, that seed where time for me was always about that swing. I always, whatever I'm playing, I even if it's R&B, I like the older school kind of soul music, R&B, the 50s and 60s kind of stuff where there was still a bit of a swing to the time feel. Things have gotten very rigid and perfect. Yeah. And I'm going to say some of that I think is maybe because of drum machines.
Right. Well,
and drummers being on gigs where they have to play to a machine. Yeah. Because that's what the creative artist wants, or that's what the drummer. And so that's great and that's cool. And I've tried to do that, and I've gotten kind of better at straightening my time feel out when I have to, but that's not in my heart. Yeah. Like if I can be loose and nimble, like, man, that's where I like to be. And I think because the seed was planted at a very young age, so it's kind of part of my rhythmic DNA.
That's great.
So I always had that. So my struggle has been trying to about 5 years ago, I had to completely re-examine my technique because I realized in order to play with a lot of drummers play very loud today, like the velocity of the drumming and the precision, I had to change my technique. And so I went through a whole process of learning to loosen my grip a little bit, like kind of letting the sticks do more of the work, which I had to let them kind of. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes since we met, and
well, it's been 30 years maybe, right?
Which we're always changing and growing, I think, right? You kind of
yeah.
So,
it's my personally, I just try to make my plan over the years more clear.
You always were very articulate. I always thought.
But now I'm just trying to make what I play in improvisation or solos to be just very clear and have it like a musical statements. Because, well, I guess everybody grows older, and like Dave Liebman told me, well, when you're young, you got to play you should play as much as you can the notes. So by the time you're 40, 50, you know what not to play.
I would subscribe to that.
Yeah, because if you haven't played all the shit that you shouldn't play, how would you know, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, well, time's up.
Okay.
If they want to know where you're at, do you have a website they can
Sure.
go to?
If you Google Rich Kulsar, Kulsar, you'll find more of my drumming activities. If you do the Skinny Richie thing, you'll find more of the songwriter, producer activities. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
But
so
man,
yeah.
It's good to do this again, man. Hang and
the great
talk.
drummer, Rich. The great. Oh, now you're more than a drummer, musician, producer, and my good friend.
Human being. That's what I'm. Human being trying to put some beauty out in the world, man.
One of the first drummers to play in my original group, college days. So check his shit out. If you haven't, check out his music, check out his drumming.
This guy too, obviously.
And see you the next episode. Ciao.
All right.